Hello, welcome to Midwest Fantasy Football week number 2. In similar fashion to week number 1, the top scorer and biggest blowout were in the same game. Scott and Josh's Pocket Dogs whooped Aaron's Pickin' So Bad It Hurts 157.4 to 96.8, a 60.6 point margin of victory, setting a new high water mark for the biggest victory margin this season. Scott and Josh were led on to victory on the backs of Mike Evans' 32.1 points, CeeDee Lamb's 28.3 points, and 5 other players who scored in double digits. 6 if you want to count DJ Moore's 16.4 points on the bench. Either way, the Dogs secure their first high score of the season and put a few bucks into the hot dog fund.
What's this, dumb dildo convention? Where are you pulling these hot dogs from? Pocket dogs. I always got a hot dog in my pocket. You want one? I don't want any pocket dogs.
Unfortunately, we don't count points on the bench here, as Aaron certainly jacked up the score there this week. The starting lineup for the Pickens put up 96.7 points, just narrowly outscoring the bench, who put up 95.8 points with just 4 guys. Aaron's leading scorer in the starting lineup was Jalen Hurts with 25.2 and Devontae Adams with 20.4. Riding the bench this week were DeAndre Swift's 30.1 points, Kyron Williams' 28.4 points, and George Pickens with 25.7 points. The two bench running backs put up 58.5 points compared to just the 5.8 that Alexander Madison and Breece Hall recorded in the starting lineup. Swapping out both of those guys still wouldn't have been enough for you to get the win. You'd had to need a little bit extra to get you over the hump, needing either George Pickens or Cortland Sutton to get into your flex spot over Jerry Jeudy. This was not a super close week in terms of close matchups. The closest scoring game actually still had a margin of 24.1 points. Chris's Minnesota fanboys took advantage of some bad injury luck, sending Tom's ruptured Chubb limping to the locker room by a score of 113.5 to 89.4. While Chris decided not to keep the three-headed monster name after week 1, the original triple threat came to play this week. Justin Jefferson led the team in scoring with 27.9, followed by 25.5 from Christian McCaffrey and 21.2 from Patrick Mahomes. We won't mention that 31.5 point game on the bench down there from Kirk Cousins.
Sorry you had to see that, boys.
I saw nothing.
Of course, it wasn't all just sunshine and roses for the Minnesota fanboy, getting a 0-point game from Deion Jackson this week after spending a massive $51 in free agency money on him last week. The Jets' defense didn't help much either, with just 0.14 of a point in the positive column. Speaking of Minnesota fanboys, Tom's ruptured Chubb was derailed this week with the news that Nick Chubb will miss the rest of the season after the nasty injury he suffered on Monday night. Chubb put up 6.4 points before going down with the injury. Otherwise, you got 17.7 points from Anthony Richardson before he was knocked out early with a concussion.
Stay here. We're controlling.
Getting the 17 points the Hollywood Brown added in from your bench into your starting lineup wouldn't have gotten you very far in this matchup, closing the gap to Chris just by about 9 points or so had you decided to swap out DeAndre Hopkins. Rolling down into other matchups this week, my Los Pollard Hermanos knocked off Brandon's Malone Call 154.9 to 127.4. I scored 154 points while getting a negative score for my defense. This one would have been Brandon's if he hadn't gotten talked to that sweet Josh Kelly hype this week, getting just 4 points from him in his starting lineup instead of the 28.7 points that Raheem Mostert scored on his bench. Also, I guess you would have probably needed to get either Tutu Atwell or Adam Thielen into one of your wideout spots to have scored the win. Alex's Big Al Sr. dropped out of first with the loss to new first place Lee's very happy ending, 128.1 to 98. Wait a second. Lee's in first? Can that truly be right? Yes, friends, for the first time in 10 years of being part of this league, Lee is in first place. Traditionally, you do not start very well, having never previously won 2 games to start the season. Congrats!
They handed me this trophy like this.
Lee pulled all the right levers this week with no player on the bench scoring more than 1.3 points, way behind all the starters. Alex didn't really have the points to compete in this one, as someone who also had to start the stack this weekend of Travis Etienne and Zach Charbonnet. It was a rough weekend. Drew's 49 problems took down Trent's love of TDs, 110.5 to 88.5. Good week for Drew with a triple 22-point game from Jared Goff, Deebo Samuel, and Christian Kirk. Trent got 20.7 from Tank Dell. The Deuces poo-poo platter splattered all over Nick's T-bowling for Combine, 133.4 to 80.2. Leading the assault was Keenan Allen with 31.1 and Brian Robinson with 28.9 for Eric. Nick got 14.5 from Kansas City's D and 13.6 from Stephon Diggs, and then nothing better than 8.
Buzz your girlfriend. Woof.
And finally, Derek's fucked up but on purpose thumped the AFK owner Will 149.5 to 114.2. Derek got 30.7 from Daniel Jones, 25.6 from TJ Hawkinson, and 20.7 from Zach Moss. Also, you had 21.3 from Rashad White on your bench. Paging Will.
Hello? Hello? Anybody home?
Will got 26.1 points from Devonta Smith, 23.6 from Josh Allen, and 18.7 from Drake London. He did miss out on a 30 bomb from Nico Collins on his bench, but I don't know how many people were on board the Nico hype train this week. I was quite disappointed to find out that Yahoo doesn't have a feature to allow commissioners to change the team names of teams in the league. I think that's usually in place so that way, in case somebody has an inappropriate name or defamatory, that sort of thing, so somebody can change the name. I was definitely going to change Will's team name to a Will.i.am Black Eyed Peas reference, but alas, I cannot change it. So I'm just going to have to continue to mock you through these videos until you actually change your team name. In player acquisition news in Week 2, it was a mad dash to the waiver wire to look for help after some key running backs were hurt this week. Matt Breida went to Tom for $31 over Trent's $27 bid and Chris's $2 bid. That was the only contested running back selected. Otherwise, Tom also snagged Latavius Murray for $21 and Pierre Strong for $11. I grabbed Craig Reynolds for $3 and Leonard Fournette went to Lee for $1. Just as an FYI, I have not heard back from anybody about shirts or merch orders from last week, so no orders going in place at this point yet. And then an update on the couple wagers that we've gotten so far. Green Bay dropped a close one. It dropped me back to 1-1. Tom got 13 points from Darren Waller this week. Good enough for 5th overall in Week 2. That also bumps him up to 5th in total points as well. Scott and I are still kicking out a couple ideas on wagers. I haven't figured out exactly the right one. Scott, I think my original idea of I don't really think I have the time to organize the depth of that one, so we probably need to find something similar. Let me know if you have some ideas. Anyways, that is the end of this week's video. We will see you back here in time for next week's recap for Week 3. I really wanted Ricky to walk in. I left this door open so that way I could use the excuse me, I'm talking to America clip here from this weekend, but she didn't show up in time because she's out bowling. Very disappointing.
It's a 10-yard penalty.